All right. This is the bit where I critique something that caught my eye. And as for usual, if I say something negative, it gets deleted from his channel, probably by self-styled moderators of his. Uh, but yeah, I'm like, I started listening to it, and it's within the first 3 minutes he popped out asset safety, um, and he just lost me right there. It was like, Christ, here we go again. Rose-colored glasses. Okay, so the problem here is statistics. Lies, damn lies, and then there are statistics attributed to Benjamin Disraeli, but it was actually just Mark Twain attributing it to him. Disraeli was a British statesman back in the day, back in a contemporary of, I believe, of Mark Twain. Okay, so the gist here that I'm getting so far, and when I say something negative about something, and it's the first few minutes in, oh god, I force myself to listen to the whole thing because Ashtarothi always says something that's cogent, that makes sense to a certain audience, and it's a good finger on the pulse of the. He's not exactly a white knight, but he tends to be really peppy and optimistic about CCP's vision because he comes from a background of role playing, of looking into the lore of Eve, and I love that. I personally loathe the lore of Eve because it's just so scattershot, but he does a great job of tying it together. Unfortunately, in cases like this, I think he's dead wrong. And it's about risk. He, and I can guarantee he's not going to go into it, but Ashtarothi's, during this whole thing, I'm going to make a speculation that he never once brings up risk avoidance. And if you look at their blog, which bragged about their plans, their long-term quadrant thing, and their scarcity and their redistribution and their dynamic redistribution, which is just, if you think about it, it's just, what the hell? How did that happen? I'm using the new mouse. It gets really weird. I hate these push the regular mouses. All right, so all this stuff, all of it, every single bit, if you look at it now, you're like, this is just a justification for you nerfing some crap and making it look pretty. There's there's nothing. Like, you read it, and swear, read it, and you're like, wait a minute. You're comparing apples to oranges and making, like, they'll apples, oranges, apples, oranges. And then I went, okay, what if I'm wrong? What if they do, how do they talk about risk? What's their concept of risk? Risk, and they pop out risk reward, but that's meaningless. That's just a statistic. That's just a combination of two words. They don't mean anything by it. What is driving this is a player base. You can only have, like, the whole shtick is conflict drivers. We want conflict drivers, and we thought that giving Rorquals and mining solo, the Rorqual mining bots, the drones and all that stuff, and the high-sec ABC ores, we thought that would drive conflict, and we thought asset safety would drive conflict, and these citadels would drive conflict and risk reward, blah 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 blah, and it, I don't think they thought anything at all. I think they just thought fun new stuff and let's give to players, blah, all this fun stuff, blah. And it's like they had maybe the idea that would it increase because they love destruction, of course. They love destruction. It's awesome because it makes people buy the lazy people buy Plex via the website and gives them profit. Yay. A lot more profit, I think, than their subscription. But it's an Astrothy too. Yeah, it completely does not pay attention to the fact that you can only have enough conflict as there are players. It's not going to increase the conflict. They already fight enough, and their desire to go to war, like World War B2, had probably nothing to do with the increase in resources or the scarcity or the prosperity or nothing. It's just drama. But it only will last so long, and then you go back to the trend line of there's only so much players in the game, and there's like, just look at Z-Kill. It's just constant conflict, PvP, but you're not going to have, just because you gave prosperity, took away prosperity, does not increase or decrease conflict. It's conflict is because of risk of most of the player base is risk averse. You know, most of the player base is hugely risk averse. If you go to the extremes, in the middle are people who like Eve because it introduces risk to them, real loss. It's cool. I mean, there's no save game option. You make a mistake, you pay for it, right? And on one side of the extreme is the Care Bears, who are risk averse and want to PvE. And on the other side are the risk averse PvPers, like the high sec gankers, who want to maximize to the full extent of high reward and have zero risk themselves. They will pick on easy targets, right? And there's null-sec blocks that do that too. Um, and it's just because, well, you know, it's the temptation is not to risk your ship, and you know, I mean, knowing which fights to pull away from is smart, you know. But a lot of people just pull away from everything or whelp blindly. But the fact is, most of the time, most of the players are risk averse. It's you have to fight it, right? You have to. It has to be an active player thing by the players themselves, you know, to constantly try to avoid the comfort, the complacency. But but prosperity, like if he goes on and on about, oh, this is it didn't it all this didn't increase conflict, but at the same time, if you go forward, his logic doesn't hold true, because as you see, the conflict doesn't increase, right? You know, it if like far back, yeah, I mean, it just look, I mean, just it's a flat line. It doesn't increase because it's tied to player base. It's not it's not prosperity, it's not scarcity, it's player base and risk aversion. And giving scarcity does not increase the desire for players to risk themselves, you know? It doesn't. Scarcity and prosperity never modified a player's ambition in the risk category, you know? Um, yeah, just think about it. Just think about the past 5 years of prosperity, right? And then the scarcity. Did your level of ambition to risk your ship or anything, because the only thing you have is your ship, right? It did not. And the graph proves it. The conflict driver did not increase, decrease because of prosperity. And playing CCP's game, as Ashtarothi often does, um, even if he's not a white knight always on their side, but by playing by their rules and accepting the debate defined by CCP, which is pure bullshit. There's nothing here that makes any sense whatsoever. Like, there's no long-term vision. They're just like, we're gonna nerf this for this reason. And you're like, those two things don't make any what? This is not how it works. What? This just makes no sense. Yes, you're nerfing it. Okay, well, good for you. There was a further one talking about how they are. I think it was in July something. It was in July that talked about an update about what they were going to do to make certain regions of space exclusive for certain minerals, right? But at the same time, it wasn't well thought out. It just looked really simplistic. And we have a solution, and it's like, that's okay, that's interesting, but it's not going to solve the problems you think you're claiming it's going to solve, right? It's just, it's just somebody playing with the petri dish and seeing what happens, but not really learning anything from it. You know, I mean, the only way you learn something from this game is to play it, and CCP obviously does not know how to play this game, right? So, anyways, I think what I'll do, I'll shut up now. I've said what I had to say. I'll listen a bit more, and if I've got anything else to add or corrections, say like, oh, Asteroid does talk about risk avoidance. Let's correct my earlier, and then we'll talk about it. But I think I pretty much captured the gist of his entire hour-long. It's not dribble. He's always entertaining. Like, it's not, but it's a chore to devote an hour of my time just to freaking listen. But anyways, I'll do it just to see. He repeats himself a lot, but yeah. Anyways, I do too. Anyways, so I'm guilty of that too. So let's see.
A few moments later.
All right, back at it. So Ash said some just plain ignorant things that aren't true at all. Uh, you guys have read the CCP Atlanta expose an ex-employee did about the sweaty meetings and how CCP was draining resources from other splinter groups of it to enhance their baby Eve, and Hilmar's obsession with record-breaking gaming articles in PC Gamer and stuff about biggest record-breaking battle, blah blah blah. So in that sense, Ash completely misses the ball. And again, he talks about Bitakar being here and the high point, and it just goes down from here. And it's like, yeah, but in 2015, right here, they announced that they're putting in friendly fire, and a lot of this drop was the high sec gankers who would just you know, uh, like the Citadels, like taking away the ability for eligibility to wars, taking away the eligibility of going on safari, going in and freely ganking anything in the corp. A lot of the alts and stuff and player base that were griefing, yeah, that was it. And you don't grow your player base by what CCP does. CCP has never done anything that influences um, the basic customer base. They'll drive off. They did a great job driving off the botters, the griefers, and yeah, this dip is good. Like this game is has a lot of griefing, and yeah, but Ash is not going to talk about that. No, of course not. This uptick. This uptick was because of free to play. Does Is Ash going to mention that as a devil's advocate to his position? No, he's got this shiny ideal of and it's kind of sad because it's like he's an entertaining guy to listen to, but he just comes off like his main. It's kind of ironic that he said something about earlier between the time I made my last clip of this. He talked about how things should be more lore related, and it's like, yeah, but that's it's like Gwyn Dyer said something very interesting many decades ago about. I think he referred to something. It's basically if you're hammer, everything's a nail, right? And to Ash, everything's lore, so that's a great. It's an answer. Bam, hit it with a lore hammer. But making fancy stories about the past isn't going to cut it in the face. I mean, I don't like people playing with statistics. It's just you've got to like look at the facts. What happened then? Is CCP doing anything to impact the player base? Yes, they probably were getting rid of a lot of botters, and right here they dealt with the Safari and the war decking, pretty much anything in high sec that you felt like. So yeah, a lot of this was griefers and botters and cheaters just disappearing, and that's good. It chunked down and it remained at this level. That's good. I am happy that it's at 31. It doesn't change the fact that he just can't explain why the numbers kept going down, right? I mean, nothing CCP does is going to grow their player base based on their constant nerfing, tweaking, nerfing, tweaking, nerfing, tweaking with their pet petri dish. They're not using good business sense, and to think that their vision, like he mentions, yes, CCP had a different vision than us since the beginning, and that's BS. They've never had a vision. They've gone from patch to patch, going, we don't like this, we're going to nerf it. Well, the player base is doing this. Well, we never intended that. Well, we're going to nerf it. And it's like, we never had an intent. You just were surprised with something the player base were doing. You reacted with a knee-jerk fix because, they just didn't like the law of unintended consequences biting them on the ass. But it's like, use good business sense instead of reacting like it's a whack-a-mole game and it's your baby. Don't get too attached to your game because you don't even know how to play the game. You don't even know the mindset of your customer base. But to them, it's just, the community's just bitter. And it's like, well, don't blame us. Use good business sense. They did good business sense, and at the same time they totally screwed it. When did they remove asset safety, right? I mean, removing asset safety and the loss that incurred was just insane, right? And let's look up that, right? I mean, he just fact checks this stuff and it's like, what the hell? No, that's not going to tell us when they changed it. This. Nope. Nope. Yeah, there it is. Well, not really, but. 2026, 2000. So when did that happen? Okay, much later. All right. So this does not reflect any of the asset safety stuff that was taken away. So none of the tweaking or the nerfing impacted the player base, except of course the griefers and the botters were nerfed there. I totally believe this dip was not because Ash goes about it like CCP was celebrating the players. It's like, what the fuck? What does that even mean? They're catering to the Care Bears, celebrating the players, and it's like giving them stuff. And it's like, yeah, but when has CCP ever gotten the pulse of the customer base to grow that customer base, right? When have they ever done that? When has it ever been clear that, oh my God, the player base is taking off because CCP did something great, right? I mean, squishing this down to a reduced time frame instead of looking at this going, okay, for like, it started in 2004, and at 2012 it was the peak, right? So 2012 it was the peak. So that's 8 years in, and it's plateaued pretty much at it's, for me, as far as I can remember, it's always been, I'm happy at the 20,000 player base in the universe seeing on my launcher, right? When they coded the launcher in, right? Even before that, you'd be able to see the player base, I believe, in the login screen. Anyways, whatever. But yeah, I mean, that's been my routine. I was not playing during the heyday of 35,000 players, blah, 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 blah. I just pretty much missed that whole whatever it was. But yeah, I mean, it's, you've got to have a long-term view on this, and you look at it, you go, I don't like buy into the idea that CCP has a vision and what they do attracts new players. It's, no. The player's ecosystem will bleed players because of retention and attract new players naturally over time. Whether they get the balance right between, I'm going by Bartle's types, between the different, killer, socializer, achiever, and explorer, whether that ecosystem is in balance. Has CCP ever, like, Ash is just talking about exploration. As an explorer, I don't use exploration, the mechanics of exploration. I don't like wormholes. I really am not interested in low sec or high sec signatures. I'm not going to go to null sec. It bores the hell out of me. Hacking and salvaging. I'm an explorer. I love exploring. Look at me. I love mechanics, but it's not that aspect of the game that is enthralling me. Because mostly it's a single player game, and to me, I don't know. It's, I like mining. Mining's my thing, and mining exploration, but exploration CCP's way, I don't think really caters to the exploration type that Bardo was talking about. To me, exploring the mechanics of non-immersive things in the game draws me into it. Otherwise, I'm happy just playing the game, right? CCP's exploration class, or ships and stuff like that, does not encapsulate what I am as a player. So I don't think they've ever been able to encapsulate that kind of thing. They talk about it up a storm, but when you look at the nuts and bolts, it's like, this has nothing to do with my game. They're irrelevant. I'm just going to play the game the way I want, using the gems that some developers have coded into the game that CCP can't rip out easily. So yeah, I don't know what Ash is talking about. I know where he's coming from, but it's completely misguided. Um, don't it's like he's debating inside the box, and he uses a hammer called lore to answer everything, and it just gives people the wrong idea. Anyways, let's see if he proves me wrong, right? God, now he talks to us about the Summer of Rage. Jesus. Okay, so Ash and talking in stations and all the white knights for CCP are all about, yes, it's been like, I'll quote Ash, it's like, it's like they ivory tower and they didn't listen, but they were brought down to earth and humbled by their player base, and 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 of course he's obviously the corollary to that. He'll get around to saying, the player base ruined the game for everybody because they're, like he said, holding hostage, and it's like, what the hell are you talking about? It's like CCP used us as an excuse to make themselves look good when they were firing all those people, because not because of us, but because they were fritting or they were investing in these admittedly really interesting stuff. But the problem is like, why are you spreading your seed so far and so wide and try to diversify, but at the same time, according to the CCP Atlanta leaked article, his expose, they were siphoning people away from those projects to work on Eve, so CCP Ilmar could have these amazing, fascinated by the record-breaking deaths. And Ash is dead wrong. That CCP has nothing to do with getting in the news. It's Hilmar was fascinated with the record-breaking fights in the articles, right? Better make this quick. Weiss about aggro. So it's just that it was just an excuse. They, like, to me, I was sub during the time. I came back and was like, what's all the big deal? And it was like, oh, Hilmar said that in a memo about that after the leak of the bulletin about Greed is Good, and he dissed the player base, and then he apologized, and then they gave the pink slip. But it was like, wow, wasn't that convenient? But the fact that they were humbled and they were in their ivory tower, they spent one entire patch, which was just immediately after the Summer of Rage, and there were amazing stuff in that patch. Just mind blowing. Oh my God, this is the way CCP needs to be. They used good business sense for one patch, and then they went back to the same old ivory tower crap. As I'm sure, yes, they were humbled, and now they're held hostage, and poor me, and oh, martyrdom. And it's like, Jesus Christ, Ash, could you get it more wrong? But it's just the same talking points. It's like crypto talking points. It's like, what the fuck are they talking about? I mean, these docking station and Ash, they're all on this high horse of the player base holding CCP hostage. Poor CCP, oh, poor CCP. And it's like they used as an excuse to make themselves look rosy, smell like roses, giving these people the pink slip. You know, it was just, you guys went way too far with your greed, had too many fingers and too many pies, had an economic crunch, and used us as an excuse to make yourself look good and us the villains when you gave the pink slips. And you had one patch of mea culpa, and it was back to business as usual. So yeah, I mean, they haven't used good business sense ever. That's why their vision is different than us. We're like, what the hell are you doing with the game? This does not make sense. And CCP is like, dirt, herp, derp. Next patch is great. And I think that's the problem. The lack of focus on risk aversion has nothing to do with their stated goals of conflict driving. it's the player base. It's not big enough to increase your conflict driver. You know, the fact that a lot of people got ticked off at the server games Goon were doing to take drive the the Pappy coalition crazy and take back their space. It was just, there were so many NPC stations in that area. They could play games with alphas and logins and use all the dirty tricks of Eve to exploit the server limits, right? So it was like, how can you how can you talk about increasing conflict when CCP has no idea how to increase their player base in the first place? Yes, they drove off the griefers who could no longer go on Safari and Wardeck any player corporation they felt like. So yes, I could see the drop in that, but CCP's vision is not different. It just they just don't have any, and imagining something when it's not there is crazy talk. But anyways, all right, I give up. He's just babbling in, just gobbledygook. It's going to be an hour of just him saying things have changed when if you just look what he said and compare it to the past, it's the same. They just tweaked a bit. And it didn't change anything. There's still a capital umbrella, there's still power creep. The tech one might be trivialized, but now is there was like it's like, yes, CCP doesn't know we know how to play the game because we play the game, and it's not we're in the trenches. We're just watching CCP. Not even like it's this woods versus the trees argument. CCP doesn't even know the trees, and they don't even know the woods. They're just they have no idea. I mean, just look at that industry rant I gave recently. It's like a noob can't even build the simplest ship and fit it simply using stuff they mine. They have to either go in low sec or go to a level 1 mission. It's like, why can't they mine the stuff they get from it? And why is the stuff in a mission? Why, you just do a level 1 mission, get the loot, reprocess it, and get stuff you can't get in high sec. You have to go to low sec to mine. So it makes no organic sense. It's like, why can't I mine? Why do I have to go do these repetitive missions? It doesn't make any sense. It's like, what, you get what I'm trying to get at, right? It's just it this niche stuff Ash is talking about. It makes no sense in the aspect of why is reprocessing stuff from a mission or rats a niche thing. That doesn't make sense. If I want to have a start in industry and build a ship and fit it with basic modules and try to sell that entire package in repackaged, of course, on the market to say a noob missioning hub, why can't I build it all from scratch using stuff from HiSec? It's basic stuff, like a basic like lasers. Can I get basic lasers, or what can I build? What can I fit a ship with that makes sense using the most basic stuff and get that working in a HiSec? There's nothing. You can't do it. Period. You just can't. And what Ash is talking about is just gobbledygook, because it's like you're talking about playing by CCP's rules, but CCP doesn't have vision. It never did. It never did. It didn't have a different vision. It just didn't have a vision. Their quadrants was a lie. Their long-term plans were a lie. It's just, yes, they change things, but it's like, this patch is great. And then they have ADD and go, this patch is great. And then they have ADD and this patch is great. And it's like, they have a long string of changes to the game that make no sense, and their rationalizations make zero sense, negative sense, especially after the fact that after 2 days they just dropped the quadrant thing. We don't like it anymore. And before that, they had that website that's no longer there of theirs that talked about, you could scroll through all the updates from past and you could look into the future about coming patches. That was really cool. And then they got rid of that, and they came up with quadrants and we have a long-term vision. And it's like, no, you freaking don't. You just marketing rationalizations for, we have a plan, but it was just, this time we're going to nerf this, and this time we're going to increase that, and this time we're going to nerf that. And it's like, we have a plan. And no, you don't. Just like, read the blogs again. Just look at them going, wait a minute, that makes no sense. That's a leap of logic you can't make in the game. This is not how it works. This is not how any of this works. So Ash, I just can't take it anymore. I have forced myself to listen to stuff like this, but it's like, this is going to be more of the same. You can't. He's a lore guy. He's a great story. You're welcome to listen to all of it if you want. I mean, I've probably spent as much time as him talking, but yeah, I mean, in the comments, if at some point he talks about risk aversion, he's talked about survivor bias, but he just glossed over it, like just breezed by it without even thinking, wait, that, what about risk aversion? That's kind of like survivor bias, right? Survivor bias, if you ever watch a video about it, it's like a bomber comes home and there's holes in the wings and the tail and bits of the fuselage, and they have a map of it and all those holes, and you think, oh, we're going to armor those parts. Just, no, the survivor bias is, these are the ships that, bombers that came back alive. We should concentrate on the bits that didn't get shot. That didn't get shot in the survivors, because the bits that did get shot didn't come home. So that's the survivor bias. I don't know what Ash is talking about. I think his intuition, like, he's a smart, intelligent guy. He knows there's something wrong with the system, and you get glimpses of it when he breezes by something like survivor bias, and he's like, wait a minute, you need to focus on that, not breeze by it. You've got to look at it and go, where in CCP's vision do they talk about risk aversion? Nowhere. You've pretty much got to be in exile to this game, where the mind does not see. You gotta focus on the realities and not play by CCP's rules, because you just lose, because they're just a marketing game. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, in the comments, if you see him talk about survivor bias, or talk about the fact that CCP really hasn't sold the game in a way that increases the player base in a visible way, and him talking about metrics, it's like, what does metrics have to do with blackout people? When the blackout happened, the PvPers lost their minds. It's like, what are you talking about metrics? And then you come up with that. It's like, metrics didn't detect the mood of the players. What I fail to understand a lot of what Ash is talking about, based on the fact that it's got no ties to reality. Like, metrics have been a thing for CCP for a very long time, and not just recently. He's talking about 2019, 18. It's like, what the hell are you talking about? I mean, Yeah, you just look at the facts. Uh, Crap. Metrics, gaming. Uh, what was it? Damn it. I'm probably not going to be able to. Maybe YouTube. Yeah, back freaking 2012. Yeah, back freaking during the peak of CCP, Ash's attributed ivory tower for CCP. This was the hottest thing going was metrics, and it was like, it's garbage in, garbage out. And if Ash talks about garbage in, garbage out at all, or talks about, like, doesn't gloss over risk aversion and focuses on that, and the fact that CCP has never really attracted players based on what they've marketed, you know? Anyways, yeah, it's just, ugh, brain. Must go sleep. I gotta work later. All right, see you guys.